there's no question that a very close friend of mine, Johan Rupert, did give, convinced he supported Cyril for the right reason, so that David Mabuza would cross the floor and Cyril would be in charge. But I think Cyril's blown all his political capital with those sort of people. They're not going to support him anymore. But where's ABSA? Where's Standard Bank? Where's FNB? Why aren't they standing up? Well, when you look at the board of directors, and they're friends of mine then, Kunku Sawazi, great guy. I think he's on the board of one of those banks or MTN. He's got to stand up and say, enough's enough. Sela Moloko, I love him. He's got to stand up, enough's enough. They're all sitting on those boards. Paul Henratty, he's got to say, enough's enough, publicly.
All right, everybody, good morning again. This is Solly Moeng at WorldView, the #1 media company. This is where we explore everyone's perspectives on all things that can broaden our own worldview. Today we have none other than Rob Hersov. Rob, I don't know where I'm going to start the discussion with you. I've been thinking about this all night.
You can go in any direction you want. So I love you, Solly. You're a wonderful friend.
I was going through your resume. It's too long, too impressive, and I thought maybe I should just say to people, just Google this man. Google him. You'll find him there on the internet.
Maybe my new tagline is rich, infamous.
There you go. Rich, infamous. And very, I think I'd add a third word, very charismatic.
Thank you very much.
Once you've met Rob, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be really, really hard to want to unmeet him.
Yeah.
There you go. But anyway, Rob, so much to talk about. Let's get this done. South Africa yourself, I mean, you come from a wealthy family in South Africa. You've inherited wealth, but you've also worked hard. You left your family went to study in the UK, in America, MBA, this, and also impressive qualifications. And you decided one day, you know what, let me go back home, because your father is still around in Johannesburg, and from what he told me, he doesn't want to leave Johannesburg.
So I actually haven't inherited anything.
Okay.
I was born into a very wealthy family. I haven't inherited a thing because mum and dad are alive. All my brothers and sisters. So dad is 96 in 2 weeks' time. Mum is 80, late 80s. They live in Johannesburg. They live in the house that I was born in Morningside, Sandton. Now, I was very privileged. I was given every opportunity, and I think I took every opportunity and made the best of it. But I've had failure. I've had success. And I just love this country. I mean, I'm African. I'm South African. I came back 5.5 years ago after 31 years abroad, and with my New Zealand wife and 2 of my thousands of children, 2 of my 4 children, little ones. And I don't want to leave. I mean, this is my country. I'm here to stay, and I love it.
When you think back about the time you were able to look at South Africa from, say, 10 years ago from afar, and after you came back to South Africa, is it the same country to you, or do you wake up every morning thinking we could do better than this? I mean, are you angry?
I'm angry. I'm disappointed. I'm sad. I lived overseas from 1985 to 2017. And for the first 10 so years of, democracy, I was so proud. I actually was always on the edge of coming back. I was like, wow, Mandela, what a good job. Mbeki, what a good job. And they put, it was a one South Africa, a whole South Africa policy, And then Zuma came in and Cyril came in and they stuffed everything up. They've really destroyed it. And funny enough, I was reading something about the Second World War. It was a great book called Berlin. It was a buy. But it was quite interesting because the Russian soldiers that fought the Germans, on the Eastern Front, survived and won Stalingrad and then pushed into Germany. Those troops, whether you like the Russians or not, at the moment, I don't, bad guys, but, they were very brave, like the Allied soldiers, and they were poured into Russia, poured into Berlin. And the frontline soldiers, they would be the ones fighting.
Right.
They were the heroes, raising the flag over the Reichstag in Berlin and things like that. But the ones that followed, the second wave of soldiers or the follow-up people, they were the ones that did mass rape of German women.
Right.
And this feels like the ANC.
Yeah.
You know, the first group that, you know, helped remove apartheid, established the first 10 years of government, got us great economic growth, lifted the boats, you know, had water lift all boats. They did a super job. They were like the front line of the soldiers.
Right.
But the people that followed, this cabinet, I mean, it's an embarrassment to the world. It's an embarrassment to Africa, and it's an embarrassment to everyone in South Africa that these people, Mbeki, Kgalema Motlanthe, I mean, how the hell,
but Rob,
with no experience, are they in those jobs? They should be thrown out.
I mean, you almost praised Mbeki there. I mean, it's the rot started with him. But Mbeki, first of all, he supported ZANU-PF and Mugabe. He's the one who caused the flood, who allowed ZANU-PF to steal elections in Zimbabwe. And look at what we have now. But he also is the one who was the first post-apartheid president to interfere with the criminal justice system. When he tried to shield his body, the late Jacques Silebi, from arrest, and he removed the NDPP from his office just so that he doesn't get to arrest his friend, and it started going down from then. That when the President Mandela was in place, the Chinese tried to put pressure on him not to allow the Dalai Lama, the Tibetan spiritual leader in South Africa. Mandela said, no, you can't tell me what to do. This is my friend. Mbeki was put under pressure not to meet with him. So the Dalai Lama came here. And then Mbeki, I think to please the Chinese, did not meet him. He got too busy to meet him. All right. So under Mbeki, I think we started losing our backbone a little bit. Of course, things got worse under Zuma, and Ramaphosa came with all that hope. But I mean, look at where we are at today.
Solly, I agree with you. The rot set in, but you could even backtrack to the original constitution of the ANC, right, pre-94, and say, it was never, ever going to be a success under the ANC. You know, they got off to a very good start, but the rot was there. You know, what is the ANC? Is it capitalist or communist? You know, is it democracy or is it totalitarianism? You've got everyone. You've got lunatic communists like Gayton Mckenzie.
Right.
You've got complete idiots like Mbeki.
All those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in cabinet, and the rest are not very smart of this cabinet, but the rot set in way earlier, you know?
Yeah.
And Mbeki, okay, he has to take some hits. And you're right. Everything you said, there were mistakes. But to his credit, lately, he's at least telling the truth. You know, he stood up recently at the conference and just said the ANC has no policy at all to fix the country.
Right.
And they never really did. You know, so
yeah, but you see that what really worries me, Rob, is all these guys from the ANC who, after they retire, they try to come back as saints. Who I don't think that the solutions that South Africa needs will come out of the ANC, whether it's somebody who's still active or somebody who's retired. Motlanthe, everybody throws him around as the saint, but he's the man under whom the Scorpios were undone. He's the man who prepared the road for Zuma to come into office when he knew this man was running from the law. He's the man who finally fired the NDPP Vusi Pikoli because Vusi Pikoli refused to promise him that he would not touch Zuma. Motlanthe is no angel. And when people like him stand up and they're seen as heroes who have the wisdom to lead South Africa, I think this is balderdash.
I agree. But what we need is courage by people, even the bad guys, even in the past, to stand up and say, you know, it's a disaster. Right. Until that, by the way, big business, I'm going to go get angry with big business very soon on this in the next few minutes. Right. But let's just stick currently to the ANC. Some polls have been done recently. You know, Franz Cronje, ex-Institute of Race Relations, and now he's got a strategic research foundation. You must listen to everything he says.
Yeah, he's talking about the post-ANC economy beginning to show its nose, is it?
But his recent poll that he's done, I think it was Ward 54, I think in Soweto. And he interviewed a lot of, or he got a company to interview a lot of ANC voters, or people that are ANC but not voting.
Right.
And here's where we are. We're at a very interesting breakpoint. So I get a bit nervous when Biz News announces you should be investing now because there's going to be a coalition in 2024, and it's a coalition of the good guys, and economic growth is going to take off. Well, if we get a coalition of the good guys, which is the DA, Action SA, Inkatha, COPE, African ACDP, and VF Plus. Those are the good guys.
Right.
Economic growth will take off. Investment will come in and we'll be safe, but it's going to take a long time to fix. But we're not there yet. So everyone's starting to say, oh, the ANC's gone under 50%, which it has. If Cyril leaves, it'll go under 40. Maybe it'll just completely collapse. And it's dropping like a stone, but it's not dead yet. You know, they've got sneaky tricks departments, Soviet planning, money they've been stealing. I wouldn't count our chickens yet. I'm still nervous. And we're at a break point right now where, you know, this poll that France did, all the work he's done is priceless. And it's sort of saying most of the ANC voters are disillusioned and seriously disappointed with this government. They're looking at them and going, these guys are embarrassing. And they admit that the DA does a better job, is a better organization, and is a way, way better prospect for South Africa. But they're not yet ready to ditch the ANC completely and move to the coalition parties, particularly if the coalition are fighting with each other. You know, come on, Action SA and DA, just man up, grow up, and work together.
Right.
You know,
but look.
But so we've got to make that happen. You know, we're at a crunch point because there are enough people out there that have had it with the ANC, won't vote for them. But we've got to get them to actually now vote for one of the many other options. We really need that.
I think, do you think that, okay, my view is that 2024 is too far. So much is happening so quickly. Do you think maybe in December, Ramaphosa should just lose? Because the thing is, the longer he stays in power, the more people have hope in the ANC. And the ANC is not going to give us answers for South Africa. But if he falls in December, maybe the avalanche will pick up speed and South Africans will wake up and realize that we really need change. We really need to save South Africa. What do you think?
Funny enough, a number of people that I really respect have said, Rob, stop criticizing the ANC. They're eating themselves. You don't need to keep saying they're idiots and lunatics and criminals, which they are. This cabinet, they're destroying themselves. They're just eating one another and it's over. So the question is, should Ramaphosa will get re-elected in December?
Are you saying?
But he doesn't deserve to. He doesn't.
You think he will?
Yeah, I think he will, but he doesn't deserve to. He's completely spineless.
Is he the least of the devils for you?
Yes, he's the least of the devils. But I mean, I'd rather have, let's face the devils and let's fight. Let's see who the evil is and let's be ready to fight politically and whatever else is required.
Somebody said to me, I think even the premier of Gauteng once said, look, the ANC knows that it needs Ramaphosa. He's the nicer face of them all. If they throw him to the dogs, it's going to be really hard for them. But the truth is, South Africa, I mean, the ANC still has the electoral mandate until 2024 to govern South Africa. If they get rid of the ANC, they might put anybody else, the Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, God knows who else out there, to run us to 2024, and then it's going to be trouble.
There's going to be trouble. I mean, if you ask anyone, and maybe I should ask you, say, if you look at the senior part of the ANC, and I don't want to call Cyril a good guy. I think he's spineless and useless. And he's propped up by business people who think, oh, we're terrified of RET. Let's support Cyril. They're not going to do that anymore. He's lost all his support. And there's some big business names that I could mention that I probably won't. Not this time around. You know who I'm going to say.
Yes.
Who've been propping him up. So if you see Cyril, I'm not going to call him.
If you see Cyril as just a minute. Why are you prepared to name politicians but not business people?
Because I'm tired of saying, when's Adrian Gore going to stand up and say the ANC is a disaster and Cyril has let us down? You know, I'm tired of, you know, he's a business hero and he's not evil. He's not a bad guy. He's just wrong, you know?
Right.
You know, and he's probably not very happy with me, but I'm sure we can make up one day. And others. So there we go. There's your name. You know, and there's no question that a very close friend of mine, Johan Rupert, did give, you know, convinced he supported Cyril for the right reason, so that David Mabuza would cross the floor and Cyril would be in charge. But I think Cyril's blown all his political capital with those sort of people. They're not going to support him anymore. But where's ABSA? Where's, you know, Standard Bank? Where's, you know, FNB? Why aren't they standing up? Well, when you look at the board of directors, and they're friends of mine then, Kunku Sawazi, great guy. I think he's on the board of one of those banks or MTN. You know, he's still probably thinking, oh my God, my mum was saved by the ANC. How am I going to reject them? He's got to stand up and say, enough's enough. Sela Moloko, I love him. He's got to stand up, enough's enough. They're all sitting on those boards. You know, Paul Henratty, he's got to say, enough's enough. Publicly, those
but
boards.
But a lot of those guys on boards, they were blessed by the politicians to be on those boards. I mean, if the ANC, Luthuli House, were to say to Standard Bank or to Nedbank or any other bank, look, you have these very problematic people on your boards, we can't work with you, because they also depend on government contracts, right? So you're going to remove them. Look at what happened to Sipho Pityana. You know, the minute you start speaking out against corruption in government, you're out, and people misunderstand.
Too late. Solly, you spoke out. You're brave.
I spoke out. Look at where
and you lost deals and opportunities. Okay, it's cost me millions. I can tell you specifically how, but it's no excuse anymore to hide in the shadows like these boards of directors, these big companies are doing. It's no excuse anymore to say business and politics shouldn't mix, because it's already mixed.
Sure.
You know, I don't want to pick on Discovery again, but they support the NHI, which we know any rational person knows it's going to bankrupt our country. You know why? Discovery, Mr. Chairman of Discovery, some guy sitting in England, supports the NHI because they're going to make a lot of money.
Right.
It's immoral. They have forced vaccines for COVID. I think they might have lifted them, and they were firing people, or saying they would fire people that didn't have the vaccine. I mean, that's pernicious. Discovery.
The discussion about the role of business is a really important one, Rob, because and a lot of people get angry with justification that we tend to focus on the wrong that is done by politicians. But a lot of times there's partnerships. There are partnerships between people in government and people in the private sector. If we look at state capture, look at how the banks, I teach online. When I get paid into my Standard Bank account, it's a small amount. I mean, you don't get rich from being a teacher, right? I get questions. I have to fill in forms. What is this payment for? Because it's coming from outside South Africa. But these Guptas and the Zumas and all these guys, they move millions through these banks. There's no indication that at any point somebody stopped them and said, wait a minute, what's this money about? So the banks, the audit firms, the audit profession in South Africa, they are quiet, but they have profited and enabled state capture and corruption.
I agree. I mean, we know McKenzie was guilty. We know Bain was guilty. You know, there are going to be law firms aplenty, like Werkspan's going to, out of the woodwork, are going to be saying, are going to be accused of bad behavior,
right,
and discovered to have facilitated these things. It's KPMG bad, SAP bad. We know that already, but it doesn't mean all of business is bad. There are a lot of people that have, stayed true and honest and moral, like you have. And people have stood up, Moletsi and Mbeki has stood up, Benedict Dube has stood up, but it's not the big guys in the main. Johan Rupert has stood up. He has been tough, but, he got then beaten up, they ambushed him in that interview. That was very unpleasant. So we need courage, and it's not just business people, it's celebrities too. I think, and celebrities like, my sport is rugby, or my sport is this, I can't risk saying anything. Well, the time's coming when they really need to all together stand up and say, enough's enough. Please, electorate, vote for DA, Action SA, and the good guys. They need to stand up.
I had a discussion with a group of political leaders a number of weeks ago. Musima Mane was one of them. Mashaba, Holomisa, and Peter Groenewald. And I said to them, up to now, you guys in politics, in active politics, you want to go into elections, and then after that compare notes, compare percentages, and then decide, okay, I'm going to go into a coalition with so and so and so. If you think about it, Rob, the ANC came into power because South Africans came together to say we don't want apartheid anymore. There were people who were in the end conscription campaign. There were people from Indian groups and black groups and NGOs. Everybody got together. They didn't necessarily philosophically agree on everything else, but they said, we don't want apartheid. And I think that when South African political parties think they can still go in there, everybody wants to be president. I'm sorry, Musi wants to be president, Mashaba wants to be president, Holomisa wants to be president. Now there's a new fellow, Songezo Zibi, who's going around saying he wants to be president. I mean, they're going to end up with a few, and say the ANC will give them a few portfolio committee chairs and they'll feel happy about themselves. I don't think South Africa needs all these guys to get together before the elections, not after the elections, to say, guys, let's do it for South Africa. It doesn't have to be you who cuts the ribbon afterwards.
100%. You know, Helen Ziller made a speech at the BizNews Drakensberg conference, BNC 3. You got to watch it. It's bang on the money. Now, I think she's the best. She and France Cloutier. Love whatever they say.
I haven't seen that. I'll look out for it. I'll look out for it.
Yeah. And, you know, she did a triangle. And think of the triangle as the ANC. And then one side is the EFF, which is totalitarian, fascist, racist, you know, the lunatic fringe, okay? But anti-ANC. And on the other side are all the people that believe in constitutional democracy and capitalism, free markets, you know, the judiciary, blah, 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 the good guys, you know. And the DA has anchored that corner. The DA is sitting at 20, 21, 22% today.
Right.
So if everybody's going to come together, they've got to come together around the DA's platform. The DA is the anchor of the coalition. And, you know,
but they're not going to do that.
They will. No, they will. They have to. They have to. Let's assume, okay? Let's assume the DA stay at 20%. Let's call it 20% in 2024, okay?
Yeah.
The Action SA, let's say it's 10%. Okay, I'm just making up numbers now. So we're at 30, okay? You know, Inkatha, VF Plus, COPE, and ACDF pull in another 10, okay? We're at 40%, okay? 40% plus. The ANC is now fallen to 40, yeah? And then there's the EFF and all other bits and pieces for the rest. I mean, you have no option but to try and make a coalition. Helen Ziller's belief, which I'm not convinced about, but I'm open-minded, is that the ANC is going to split in some way. You know, it'll fall apart. If Cyril doesn't get elected, whoever the good guys are, and you didn't tell me another name other than Cyril. I mean, Enoch, our finance minister, he's a good guy for sure. He and Cyril.
Enoch,
I won't call him Enoch
Godongwana.
Yes, he's in the Cyril camp.
Yes.
I don't call him good, but I call him better than the monsters on the other side. You know? And they're not that many of them, but if they split out, I think they could form some sort of the real ANC or the ANC 2.0 or the ANC 1.0, you know, and then team up with the coalition. You don't see it?
No, you know, Rob, people who are born and bathed in the African National Congress don't leave the African National Congress easily. They always look on which side of their bread is buttered. All those people, if Zuma becomes president again, they will say, look at Gayton Mckenzie, how they all flip, because in the name of the ANC, they must keep the party together. Ramaphosa kept quiet all these years. He's not even telling us what he heard, what he saw when he was deputy president, and he came out and said, listen, my role is to keep the ANC together. They will keep the ANC. I promise you, I've spoken to many ANC people. At the end, they want to save the ANC. Even the so-called Save Our Democracy campaign people, they want to save the good side of the ANC.
It's
they
unsavable.
Cannot imagine South Africa without the African National Congress. And the things, Brent, and to your point about the DA, I see the percentages, but South Africans tend to be too, either they like or they dislike a brand, a political brand. And there are also too many other South Africans who have not voted. If you look at the number of people who voted, who were registered to vote, who have not voted, it's still quite high, especially the young people. I think that a new brand is needed. All these people must leave their egos aside and say, let's work for South Africa. DA, EFF, not EFF, sorry. DA and all the other good guys that you mentioned. And then let's create a new brand and attract South Africans into a post-ANC future. But the minute you keep pushing your own brand, no matter how good it is, these are all those people who don't want DA for whatever reason, no matter what you say to them, for them to jump from the ANC to support a DA idea. If the DA were to say to many of them, there's a train coming, get off the tracks, they will stay there because the DA is saying so.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say it, but that's the DA is a fact of life.
Yeah.
They started in 1994. They've been there from the beginning, and they started with Cape Town, then the Western Cape. They've expanded in the rest of South Africa. I had an American guest visit me yesterday. I've been to Cape Town once, a little bit before, for a day or two. And he said to me, it blows my mind. He said, I was in Johannesburg and Durban, chaos, falling apart. You know, I come down here, everything works. It's like going to another country. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the DA makes the difference. And I know for a fact from France Premier's research that these ANC voters admit the DA does a better job. The DA is a better option. The DA know how to run the business. But because of this emotional attachment, they're struggling to migrate to whichever party.
Correct.
But it's going to happen. We've got 2 years to make it happen. It'll happen. The ANC is just eating itself alive because all they know how to do now is break and steal. And the population, the voting population know that.
Okay, look, so Helen Zille is not the official leader of the ANC, of the DA, sorry. Steenhuisen is. Do you think Steenhuisen can rally all those forces around the idea that the DA can do in the rest of South Africa what it's doing in Cape Town? And I mean, we can have a conversation about Cape Town. I live in Cape Town, in the poorer Cape Town, part of Cape Town, at least my home is. And the crime, I'm still on my neighborhood watch list. It's the crime there, home invasions. People can't even take a walk in their own streets. It's painful.
But do you blame the DA for that, or Mbeki, who's completely useless? I don't know how he gets his hat stuck on his head.
It's a good question. Look, I like the DA mayor. I like Steenhuisen. I like Alan Winde, and I also do think that there must be a devolving of policing powers to the province. I totally agree. I think that if the DA was allowed what it must do in the Western Cape, it would most probably do a much better job than the ANC. I don't understand why the ANC seems to be allowing criminality to be so rampant in the Western Cape, and it doesn't allow the provincial government there.
They want criminality in the Western Cape. They want to undermine the DA. This is pure Soviet strategy. Yeah. Why do you think Mabuza's in Russia, has been in Russia? He's not sick. He's been told what to do and given the money. It's the Soviet playbook. Trust me. Yeah. Trust me. So look, I don't. John Steenhuisen, I don't think ever expects to be president of this country. Okay, I really think he doesn't expect that. But he and Helen and the DA team know they can anchor a coalition, and who knows who will be president.
Yeah, but Rob, I mean, this is a very important point. You're looking at the DA from a what they can do perspective, which I do not disagree with, but I'm looking at them from the emotional perspective, which we cannot underplay. In South Africa, emotions in politics are huge. People, as I said earlier, if the DA were to say there's a train coming behind you, get off the track, they won't move because it's the DA, even when the DA is correct. So that's why I'm saying the DA people need to say, okay, our brand still pushes a lot of people away. It creates wrong conversations, even though we know we have it in ourselves to do some things, many things right. How about we create a new uniting brand for South Africa? Even though we'll play a central role in it.
Let me test that, because I know where you're heading, but let me test that for a second. There are brands out there. Thuli Madonsela is a brand for good. She
doesn't want to go into politics. I've had that discussion.
I'm just saying. Musi Maimane is a big brand. Okay, and he's hopefully going to re-enter politics. So before we talk about an Uber brand that sits above all of this, which I think is where you're heading,
right?
There are brands that haven't entered the fray yet, and they're mini brands like Karu Charu, the hilarious Indian guy who I met recently from Durban. You know, he's now speaking for a bigger and bigger audience. Mac G. These two guys, I'd love to meet them.
But you're talking about individual brands. What about I'm not talking about individual brands, Rob. I'm talking about it could be an idea, an organization.
I know. But I'm saying if there's a glass ceiling for the DA of 20 to 25%, okay, which is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think there's a glass ceiling for the EFF of 10 to 12%, by the way. But the South African population don't want destruction and chaos, which is all that mob represents. So let's say there's a glass ceiling. I still think we need a couple more options in the game. Maybe Gayton Mckenzie, Patriotic Alliance, maybe Mmusi Maimane, but it's getting late. There's 2 years to go. So to create, if individuals to enter the market, they have to have brand equity already, which Mmusi Maimane does have. To create an Uber brand, let's not use Uber, a Solly brand that covers DA, Action SA, and all those parties, would people vote for that in a national election? Who would be the leader? Now, you'd have Herman Mashaba arguing with Mmusi Maimane, arguing with, I think it's not going to be possible to do before the election. It has to happen after.
I think it can happen before the elections. If you look at the French elections recently, Rob, for the second round of the elections, all the parties on the left decided, look, guys, we tried to go in individually in the first round. We failed. We need to reduce Macron's parliament majority in the National Assembly. They got together and they reduced his numbers massively because they came in under one name. And I think it can happen in
South Africa. France, South Africa. I mean,
no. I mean,
we've only had the national government and the ANC for the last 100 years.
The enemy of South Africa, the only obstacle standing between South Africans and the potential the country has is the ANC. There's nobody else.
Correct.
Okay, my money doesn't count. My lemma doesn't count much.
Correct.
Okay. You can't build that South Africa while the ANC controls foreign affairs, the resources, or policy making, and all that. You have to remove the ANC. Okay, and the only way to remove the ANC is to get together as South Africans before the elections, not after the elections, where you're going to start counting who got what crumbs and how do we get together, who takes what position. You say, let's build a united front to remove the ANC and then work on building South Africa. There's no way that it'll happen.
Who runs this front?
Well, I don't have a name. The good names, some of the good names that you've mentioned, Maimane, Mashaba, Tieners, and all, we have good South Africans. Who could dare to?
How about ANC out?
Yeah, there you go. ANC out. Something like that. We need to show South Africa that you might think the sun is setting, but the sun has not set. It's just being hidden by a huge mountain, on which is written ANC. Let's remove this mountain and be able to see our sun again.
Agreed. I love that description. One SA, activist movement founded by Mmusi Maimane. If you go onto onesa.org, they ask you to fill out who would be the great individuals. I think it's 50 or 100 individuals that could be the right people to lead this country. And what they're looking for is independent candidates. And I filled it out, put your name in there, by the way. So they're going to hopefully contact you. I did. Mark Barnes went on an interview a few weeks ago, and I've known Mark since university. He's the guy that was offered Postmaster General, took it at no cost, no salary, said he turned it around and found that the cadres, the ANC cadres, stealing and breaking made it impossible. Okay.
Yeah.
He went on and said there are 100 great people in this country that could do the job and turn this country around. And then they asked him, what about names? Didn't name names. I would have gone Solly Moeng, Mmusi Maimane, Siv Ngesi, Vusi Tembekwayo, Karo Charo. I can go on for 100 more, throw in some business people. They're there. We've got the talent. We've got amazing people in this country. Yeah, Ian Cameron should be Minister of Police, not Mbeki, clearly. Becky's unqualified for pretty much anything.
But exactly, that's what. But we agree, but we don't see those names that you mentioned. Okay, I'm not sure about myself, but all those people must get together before the elections and say to South Africans, here is the promise. Here's Ian Cameron who can do a better job. This is. We must promise them a post-ANC cabinet that is convincing, of individuals coming from across South Africa. There's so much talent, so much.
Solly, give me a cabinet position, I'll give you the minister. Energy, Kusim Kalyan.
Yeah, you see, but then we
mining, Lebo Mgoti.
Yeah,
come on. Look. Technology, Vusi Tembekwayo. Culture, Sivengesi. Sport, Siyakolisi.
So exactly. So those people must get together before the elections, Rob, not after the elections. They must make South Africans dream again. We can't wait for the elections to happen. We must say, guys, this is what we're preparing for. I'm not interested in all these people who all want to be president themselves. We must say, of course, one of them will be president at some point, but we must. somebody who
Let's
drives
do
this
it
whole
then.
thing just because they must be president is not the right person, in my view.
So, Solly, I'm making you head of Home Affairs, okay, in my cabinet, okay? Do you like
Home
that?
Affairs.
Home Affairs. I mean, you've got to fix it. You know, Aaron is incompetent. He can't
Yeah, but
do
you
it.
know, okay, yeah, that's interesting.
So why don't we do it instead of talking about it? Let's get your
Let's do it.
get WorldView
Yeah.
to fill in the gaps. Get people to say this person in this role, and let's create a virtual cabinet. And
We
then
have
put
started
their
those
bios and
conversations.
CVs.
Yeah, we
Yes.
have started those conversations, and we will complete. And there was a lot of buy-in in a lot of conversations that we've had about the need to do. There's no way that we can keep doing things over and over again the same way and expect different outcomes. 2024 is big for South Africa.
We agree Ian Cameron as Minister of Police. Yes?
Yes. Now, here's a question for
No,
you.
Solly, you can be Foreign Affairs. Solly Moing, Minister of Home Affairs.
Yeah, I could
Accept?
be Foreign Affairs and
Right, done. So we got two already, okay? I want
say
no
to the
job.
world, listen, this great country. Look, that's an interesting. Look, Rob, Gayton Mckenzie. People have a lot of mixed reactions about him. Some people call him a tsotsi, unreliable, all that, and you seem to love this dude. What's your view of Mckenzie?
What I don't like is his alliances with the ANC in these various municipalities. But he explained to me that he's got to keep his flexibility. He can make a difference there. He believes that certain councillors, ANC councillors, actually want the right thing for the country, and he can work with them and make things happen. He's proven he can do the job in the Central Karoo by rolling up his sleeves and, you know, doing things, practical things the ANC hasn't done since they started.
Right.
So he's delivering results on the ground. He's an extraordinary guy, and for someone who had the most different background to someone like me, you know, he is a capitalist. He's anti-communist. He says it in his speeches. He doesn't like the communists, and nor do I, and nor do you. You know, just idiotic.
But he also says, yeah, he also says if he becomes president, he's going to throw all the Zimbabweans and the DRC people out.
Well, he didn't say it like that. He said, you know, there are so many illegal immigrants in this country taking jobs away from the locals, which is partly true and partly not true, because a lot of the Zimbabweans and Malawians I know have started businesses from nothing. So they're not taking jobs from anyone. They're creating opportunities in the country. So good for them. I think they're amazing. But, you know, the ANC just let all the Zimbabweans pour into the country to keep their gangster friends, Mugabe and Mnangagwa, in power. You know, if Zimbabwe had hundreds of thousands of unhappy people in the country, they might have stood up against, you know, they might have overthrown that government, but they're all here. And they're very productive and literate people. So people should not be allowed to come here illegally. End of story.
Right.
And, you know, Gayton does say, you know, if there's a highly skilled person, they should get a visa. I could bring 100 international tech billionaires into this country overnight that would like to live here 3, 6, or 12 months a year, and the ANC won't allow it. Okay, but they let millions of people pour across the border. I mean, Aaron, you know, how bad are you, pal?
Right.
He's terrible. He's a disaster. He doesn't know how to fix it. So what Gayton says is correct in the sense that legal immigrants should be allowed in. You need to apply, and you know, if you're filling a job or creating opportunities or investing, we need immigrants. But, you know, try and fix it after the fact is very difficult.
Yeah. Okay, now talking about illegal immigrants. I mean, there was a story of the Russian lady who came here to South Africa, invited by you, and I heard just 2 weeks ago, last week, Clement Manyatela on 702 was talking about that person and linking your name to it. I mean, what is your post-mortem explanation of what happened?
Nothing to do with me. She, you know, claimed asylum to get in, and then her legal team, and I know this because I was briefed by it, her legal team sued Home Affairs, and Home Affairs acted illegally. They withheld the passport, illegal, and it went to potentially the High Court where Home Affairs would have lost. So they acted illegally. Aaron acted illegally. Bully boy, held her passport. And I think her lawyer just said to her, look, you know, why bother? Just, accept this nonsense deal, from Home Affairs and off you go. So, she was just a friend, invited by a friend of mine to come to my party. And, Home Affairs acted illegally, but her lawyer decided, look, just leave the country.
But she's accused of having lied, of saying, look, I'm here as a refugee because of the war in Ukraine and Russia.
So 6
million
million
war
people
in Ukraine.
So, I don't know what that was, but 6 million people pour across our borders. The ANC do nothing. And yet Aaron, big success story, picks on one little girl and claims it as a success. I mean, wow. Big boy that.
Yeah, good point.
Pretty
good
pathetic.
Point. Okay, let's move on. Ramaphosa announced what many people described as an impressive solution to fix our electricity problem last week. But I see now analysts are coming back to say, wait a minute, it's only going to give us 1,900 megawatts, and it's not going to solve everybody's problems. What do you think? Have you had time to think about this plan?
Yeah. The DA has been proposing this for 10 years. And Cyril now wakes up and pushes it through only because we have a complete crisis in our country. 1 week before, he goes to the South African Communist Party conference and says to Gayton Mckenzie's completely idiotic idea of let's create an Eskom 2.0, Cyril goes, oh, it's not a bad idea. I mean, how pathetic is Cyril and how stupid is Gayton Mckenzie? They can't fix Eskom 1.0, so they want to launch Eskom 2.0.
They also want to establish a state bank. I mean,
they can't fix sewage pipes. How are they going to establish a successful state bank? They can't maintain systems that exist already. They break and steal, and yet they want to centralize authority.
Who are these people, Rob? Who are these people?
They are fundamentally stupid. Some are criminals. They're clowns. It's a cabinet of clowns.
Yeah.
Bluntly.
Do you think
the people know it? I think the voting population know it. I think anyone who says the ANC hasn't loved this country is wrong. The ANC loves this country, but this government has fallen out of love with the country.
What's the difference between the ANC and this government?
This is the government that the ANC has put in power. They are corrupt.
The ANC doesn't love South Africa. Come on.
It did.
Will the ANC love South Africa the same way an abusive partner loves his partner?
That's what it is. It's basically a divorce.
Yeah.
There was love, and now they hate. Husband and wife hate each other, but they're staying in an abusive relationship. We have an abusive relationship with the ANC. We, the country.
It's a hugely abusive relationship.
Cyril and Lala, whatever he did in Namibia, has broken about 15 laws. He should say, I'm guilty, I'm a bad guy, I'm resigning. Is he going to resign? No. Mbeki, completely incompetent, should have been gone long ago. Is he going to resign? He's not going to resign. Gayton Mckenzie, even worse.
Yeah.
None of them. They have no moral compunction. They have no moral spine.
I think many South Africans still misunderstand how the delegation of powers and the deployment of people works or functions in the ANC. Because if you think about it, we have David Mahlobo, that dude who also spent a lot of time in Russia, the friend of Zuma. He was at some point state security minister. He's still a minister. That dude is so compromised. I mean, how does Ramaphosa look these people in the eye? I mean, when he comes to say, I want to clean up, and he still has all these crooks around him. I mean,
it's disgusting.
And South Africans believe that.
My wife's a New Zealander.
Right.
She's just but she's flabbergasted. There's the word. She's flabbergasted at the stupidity and incompetence of the current cabinet. I would love to be a fly on the wall at one of their meetings. I guess half of them don't read the documents. The other half are asleep at the table. They're probably doodling in the corner, making stuff up. One person says one thing, another says completely different. Cyril is no leader. And then they go for coffee and wander off and do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
It's a cabinet of clowns.
We spoke about elections earlier. We haven't spoken about the Independent Electoral Commission. What are your views?
the ANC is trying to game the new electoral bill. So it's not directly proportional. So the more you get, the more seats in parliament you get. Now that has to be killed. I think December the 10th is when this goes through parliament, the new election. The independent candidates, I think, is a very interesting development, where people actually vote for someone they know, a local person that they trust and like.
Right.
Instead of
and they can
ANC,
give him a kick in the butt if they're not happy with them.
Correct. And if you say to your electorate, I will deliver XYZ, and then you go into parliament and vote against XYZ, kick them out.
Yeah.
It's not happening,
but
because the moment you vote for the ANC,
IEC is independent, is politically secured, is shielded from the African National Congress?
Not entirely. So before we do IEC, let's state the judiciary. Okay? The judiciary is compromised. I don't know how many of the lawyers, what percentage are told are cadres. I always thought the word was cadre. I think it is cadre, but we call it cadres. There was a very dodgy decision that went on the River Club in Cape Town. It's Judge Goliath.
Right.
I would not be surprised if Judge Goliath was right up the ANC's, what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But there are going to be lots of those judges across the board. Maybe 30% of the judges in South Africa are owned by the ANC, and judgments go wherever the ANC want to go.
They know which side of their bread is buttered.
Bingo. And the same thing in the IEC. I reckon a couple of those people in there are ANC cadres.
Yeah. Perhaps let's not make a general statement to say the judiciary is captured. Maybe there are bad elements in the judiciary.
Part of it is captured. Part of it is captured. Not the whole thing. No way.
Right.
In fact, the pillars of democracy that weren't captured, media, judiciary, treasury, everything else captured. And to capture a judiciary means you have to replace thousands of judges. And Erdogan did that when he got elected in Turkey with a majority, changed the constitution. What did he do 1 week later? Replaced 6,000 judges. Now every decision goes his way. So that's one way of capturing the judiciary. Okay. Right. The other way is cadre by cadre by cadre, which the ANC's been doing. And Cyril knew it. He oversaw it. He knew about cadre deployment. I mean, how can he claim to be the good guy? He isn't. He isn't. So IEC, I think, is somewhat influenced, is not entirely clean. But, Michael Louis is a very interesting guy. I think you've met him. And you should talk to him about the independent candidates process that's coming in, which I think is really healthy for South Africa. He wants me to stand. Well, why would I stand for politics? I hate it.
And you want me to go into politics?
No way. No, never, ever, 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 ever.
Rob, if you had a dinner to arrange, a really special, there are two sets of dinners. One, you're going to invite, you have to choose between Thabo Mbeki and Mbeki. Whom would you choose? That's the one dinner. The other dinner, you have to choose between the editor-in-chief of Daily Maverick and the editor-in-chief of independent media. Whom would you choose?
Oh my God.
I know. Let's play a little bit here.
I take Moletti and Mbeki. I take Moletti. I actually know both of them and I like both of them, but I take Moletti. I love his economic views. I just sort of think he's got more of a, he'd be the one.
Right.
And then I think I'd pick, I don't want to go anywhere near those, the gangster independent media. Ugh. No, I'd take the editor of the Daily Maverick. They do a very good job of uncovering all the nonsense.
Right.
But there's a lot of toxic femininity in there, let me say it. And they're a bit anti-capitalist, they're a bit left-wing, So, at the moment, we're all on the same side because the ANC is so awful. And the Daily Maverick do a very good job of uncovering the nonsense and reporting on it. And they write well. But when it comes to international politics, a bit too left-wing for me. And when it comes to, being anti-capitalist, I'd like to talk to the editor. Why not be a bit more centrist? So I'd find that interesting.
Okay, so
but let me ask you who you would choose in those cases.
I would go with your choices.
Come to the dinner.
I would go with your choices for sure.
Solly, let me ask you a question. How's WorldView doing? you run a very good show. Tell me
We
how
need,
WorldView's
thank
doing.
you very much. We need
What's the
more
vision?
support. That's why we always call for people who can support, as you know, WorldView in advertise on WorldView. But we're reaching out more and more. Our numbers are growing from time to time. We've had issues, I must tell you, with YouTube, where we had a discussion on vaccines and COVID-19. And they don't like that. The minute you mention COVID-19 and vaccines, those bots suddenly zoom onto us and they say, well, you're off. So it's a pity because we can't have these robust, open conversations about some of these topics without fearing being blocked. But other than that, we in terms of numbers, we're growing. Of course, but we need more support. We need more people to be on our side, and because I think we have a role to play to grow. To get more people to have these difficult, uncomfortable, but fun conversations about issues that affect our world, South Africa. So I think I hope that answers you. So we need support.
So Solly, you're I was going to say unsung hero, but you're a sung hero. But do you want to mention one or two unsung heroes that are out there that deserve a bit of a hug and a bit of love for the work they do day in, day out to make our country a better place? And don't say Suleiman of Gift to the Givers, because we all know what an amazing job he's doing.
Oh, that's a difficult one. It's really hard. There are so many people doing so many things that are not known. That dude who left, Arthur Williams, who had to leave because, and he's a lone voice out there speaking out against what Bain and company did rather in South Africa. And there are others. I think we need to have those whistleblowers. What I can say is I know, and I have spoken to many people. Some of them are the known ones who've written books, who've appeared on TV, who've been interviewed here and there, like Arthur Williams and others. But many others are still quiet. They are chupstel because they have been kicked into that blacklist. They can't get jobs. They are untouchable. They still have to sail below the radar. The radar. I can mention someone like Monobisi Kalawe, for instance. He was at some point the CEO of the Cape Town International Airport. He was the CEO of SAA when Dudu Myeni was messing up, and that guy pushed back. He pushed back hard. Even Zuma didn't want to shake his hand. Okay, and people don't know about him. He never went to the Zondo Commission. But that guy, if the Zondo Commission had called somebody like Mono Bisika, I would say, what has Dudu been up to here? That guy would tell us. But he chose to stay out of it. And there are many others. There are many people who send me stuff on inbox, private emails, say, please, sorry, look what's going on here, what's going on here. And of course, I don't break news, because I don't have the money to fight any cause. What I do, I give the news to the right people who have the resources to investigate further. And if there's merit in a story, to put it out there, and then I can comment on the story. So now, I think we need to do more to create an environment where South Africans who see wrong, even when they're afraid, can confidently go somewhere and say, this is happening. Because there are single mothers who are paying bonds and car payments and children to school and all that who don't want to lose their jobs, but they see things that are wrong. I know somebody from the for the PIC, for instance, who also went back to work, and the environment was not friendly. But she had the courage to go to the Zondo Commission and said to them, this is exactly what I've seen. And she's not a junior person. So we have to protect these people, but we have to create an environment where South Africans can stand up and say, what is happening here is not good. We need to stop it. And those people must be protected.
So you're saying the same thing as me. You have courage. I have courage. We put our necks on the line. We tell it like it is. More people need to do it.
Yes.
Business people. It's not just the poor whistleblowers that then lose their jobs and come under pressure. We need big business to show a bit of courage and call it out for what it is and stop hiding behind whatever they're hiding behind.
Exactly.
Why should the lawyers, the journalists be the ones fighting the fight continually?
Exactly.
We need support. We need big businesses to grow some spine for
once. I kind of like Professor Wiseman Kutlu. He was at some point the chairman of KPMG, and I wrote quite a number of articles about them. But he said something to me in a discussion that the problem with the audit company, business auditors, and all those people, is that they do not place public interest at heart. Okay, it's all about how do we retain the client, how do we How do we help the client get out of trouble, even when the client is committing crimes against the collective interest of South Africans? So we need to get to a point where these people say, no, but I'm sure we would love to have another contract with you, but what you're doing here is wrong. And they're not doing that. How do you get those guys to say public interest first? South Africa has been messed up big time. Many people have kept quiet. We can't allow that to happen again.
100% agree. Speak truth to power.
Yeah.
Grow some spine.
And look,
spineless.
And we mustn't lie to anybody. There are always consequences for speaking truth to power. I mean, those people who want to speak loudly must be allowed to do so. But they must know there are consequences. But those people who want to have an avenue to expose or to block stuff that is wrong for South Africa must be given these avenues without hurting their livelihoods.
Easier said than done, but I think
Easier
the
said
more
than
that's, you know what will happen? The more that stand up, the more will stand up. And there'll be a flood, and suddenly the people that didn't stand up, they'll be latecomers, and we'll remember who they are. They'll get the white feather of cowardice.
So, Rob, we're almost coming to the end of the discussion, but I have to ask you this. Was there a question that you hoped I would pose and that I have not posed? Something that you think has to be out there?
There are so many that my head would spin. Maybe you could ask me, is this my real hair? Yes, it is. No, Solly, you do a super job and I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. Well done.
Thank you. I have a thought though before we, do you think South Africa needs a benevolent dictator a la Rwanda to get out of it? I mean, look at the rampant criminality. It's the laws that we have sometimes seem to protect the criminals. Do we need somebody who come in and say, boom, jail, or not really?
No. A government of the DA, Action SA, and Carter, VF+, COPE, and ACDP will put people in those positions who will then put people underneath them that will get the job done. We don't need that.
Okay.
If you take you as Minister of Foreign Affairs, you'll open the country for business. If you put Ian Cameron as Minister of Police, we will cramp down on crime. Mm-hmm. No, but we don't need a benevolent dictator.
Okay. But we have seen also that you can have all the brilliant democratic institutions in place. If you put schmucks at the head of those institutions, individuals go rogue. You put power or too much money into the head of somebody, boom, they go rogue on you. So we do need to look at the checks and balances. There are systemic changes. It's not just a change of people that we need at the head of South Africa, but we need to say, how did this happen and how did it happen for so long? What do we need to change to make sure it never happens again?
100% agree. I vote for you, Solly.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate you. That. Anyway, to the viewers out there, if you've come this way, this far with us, you've obviously enjoyed this discussion with Rob Hersov. I'm sure he will come back in the future. Please continue to share our videos, and and if you want to support us, of course, you can write to us at worldview.help@gmail.com. And please also subscribe to this channel. I'm Solly Moeng, WorldView. Thank you very much, and goodbye, Rob.